Hey everyone, it's Rose. Welcome back to my channel, and in today's video I'm going to be doing the mid-year book freakout tag. So originally I was not going to do this video because I didn't really enjoy doing it last year, but then I was like, nobody knows anything about how my reading is going because I was on like a 3-month hiatus. Before we get into the tag questions, I wanted to do a check-in of how my reading has been going because like I said, nobody knows how my reading is going. So I just wanted to check in on my 2021 goals to see where I'm at right now. So my reading goal for this year was to read 30 books, and as of right now I've read 14, which I'm not in a bad place. I'm not mad about it, so I'm actually doing very well. My second goal for this year was to read more book of the month and more Owl Crate books. Those were the two book subscription services that I had. I'm still with Book of the Month, but I'm no longer with Owl Crate. I have 17 Owl Crate books and I haven't read a single one. And I think I have 12 Book of the Month books. Like I said, still have not read any Owl Crate books. I've read one Book of the Month book so far, which we'll talk about later. My next goal that I had was to read more books outside of my comfort zone, which my comfort zone is thrillers and romance. I've only read one romance this year. I've read maybe one or two thrillers and a few contemporary, which is also kind of in my comfort zone. So I may have gone outside of my comfort zone maybe 2 or 3 times. So I would say that I'm doing well with that one. Another one of my goals was to read more books by people of color or just not American people. And then also to read more books by authors who are lbgtqia+. So far I don't think I'm doing very well with that. I have read one book by a person of color. I read Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man by Emmanuel Acho, and that one was really good. But I definitely do need to work on that one the most out of all of my goals, I think. And then my last goal that I had was to complete the 2021 Buzzword Challenge, which I have a whole video talking about that challenge. I'll have it linked in the description if you'd like to check it out. But this challenge was created by Kayla from Books and Lala. I completed the challenge for January, February, and June, which sounds about right because March through May was kind of where my reading slump was at for the most part. So yeah, I just wanted to check in on my goals, which I'm glad that I did because looking back on what I've read so far this year, now I know that I was kind of slacking on reading books by people of color or by authors who are LGBTQ+. Okay, so now let's get into the tag questions. The first one is, what is the best book that you've read so far this year? And this was really hard to pick just one book that I've loved so far this year. And so I have 3. The second book that I read this year, it's a thriller and it's a Book of the Month pick. I read No Exit by Taylor Adams. This one's a thriller. This one has very winter, blizzard, snowed in vibes and killer on the loose. We don't know who it is, but we're trapped in the same room with them type of situation. And I read it during an actual blizzard, which was just, loved that so hard. But yeah, this is definitely one of my favorite books this year. This was so good. The best thriller that I've read thus far. The book that I read in April is the only romance that I've read so far this year. It's One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This one has love triangle, dead husband comes back to life situation. And then a book that I read in May, which I bawled my freaking eyes out, A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. This one was very sad. This little boy has to watch his mom struggle through her battle with cancer, and then he's also dealing with his own personal demons. The second question is, what is the best sequel that you've read this year? And I've only read one sequel, but I did complete the series, which is, that never happens to me. This is the only series that I've read that I've actually completed, but it's the second book in the Spiderwick Chronicles, and it's The Seeing Stone. Talked about my feelings about the series in my recent reads video if you want to check that out. The next question is, what is a new release that you haven't read yet but you really want to? So I have a few. These first two, both of these came out in 2021. I'm not exactly sure when. They're both book of the month picks. The first one is This Close to Okay by Lisa Cross Smith. I haven't heard too much about this one. Like, I knew like when it was coming out it was going around quite a bit, but I've never actually heard what people thought about it, you know. And then another one that I have is The Push by Ashley Audrain. This one is a crazy thriller. Like, I've heard a lot of people say, like, if you were a pregnant lady, do not read this book because it deals with like mental illness and then also motherhood. The next question is, what is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year? The book that I am most excited for, which is probably like the only one because I don't really look forward to books very often, but it is The Stars Will Guide Us Back by Rue Sparks, who is my pen pal and a very close friend. Like I said, it came out a couple weeks ago. I still don't have it yet. I'm waiting for it to come in the mail. It should be here within the next few days. But it is a collection of short stories. The fifth question is, what has been your biggest disappointment so far? For this one, I'm gonna go with The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. I tried to read this in March, which was when my reading slump was kind of settling in. I wanted to read this to try to like ease myself into reading, to like get myself out of the slump. I thought this was gonna be like a small town like ghost story type of story, but it wasn't, and I think it was just moving a little too slow for me. I think I would definitely try to read this again in the future, but right now it's kind of like an unofficial DNF. I just really enjoyed that creep factor of Coraline, and so like I thought that would just be like a consistent thing through all of his like creepier books, but yeah, there was not like a very big creep factor for this one. The next question is, what was your biggest surprise so far? And for this one, I'm gonna go with The Running Dream. I don't actually remember the author's name, but like the only reason why I read this book was so that I can complete the buzzword challenge for January. For January, it was like read a book with the word dream in the title, and I had found The Running Dream on Libby. It's about this girl who is like a track star, like her future was so bright and everything, but then she gets in an accident that causes her to lose her leg, and so now she's gotta like deal with that. But yeah, I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. Like, I gave it 3 stars, so it's not like best book ever, but yeah. The next question is, who's your newest fictional crush? And I don't really crush on characters that much. I think I do when I'm reading the book, but like I have this tendency to forget everything that happens in the book and like my feelings that I had while I was reading the book as soon as it's over. As of right now, I'm not like crushing on anyone so hard, but like definitely while I was reading the book, I had a huge crush on Sam from One True Loves. He's just like that ideal boyfriend. He's like super artsy, like into reading, into music, and like art galleries and stuff, and he was just super sweet to the main character, Emma. Like I said earlier, like there's a love triangle going on in here, and Sam was part of that love triangle, and if he were a real person, I would definitely fall for him. Another character that I definitely did not expect to have a crush on was like the bad guy in The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Like, nobody should be crushing on this dude. But I definitely did for a hot second there. And if you've read this, maybe you know what I'm talking about, but if you haven't read this, read it so you can find out what I'm talking about. Like, if I say who it is and like why, then it would be a spoiler for this book, and I don't want to do that, but I think you might know what I mean if you've read this. I don't know. The next question is, who is your newest favorite character? I think it's weird for me because the characters of a story is very important for me. Like the story can be as interesting as it wants to be, or like as least interesting, but like the characters are what like saves a book or makes the book for me, I think. I used to think that I was more of like a plot driven reader, but like characters are definitely like a big thing for me. So but even so, like I don't usually have like favorite characters. There's never like a character in a book that I like think about a lot or just like tell people like, oh, they're my favorite character. I don't know. So yeah, I don't have an answer for this question. I mean, I guess I could say Addie from The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, because she definitely had her like bad bitch moments. And same goes for the main character from No Exit. I can't remember her name for the life of me, but definitely her. And maybe Coraline, because she's like braver than I am and she's like 11. So I guess I do have an answer for this question. Number 10, next question is, what is a book that made you cry? And I said before, A Monster Calls, like I freaking bawled my eyes out. It was more towards the end. Oh, this book was just so sad, and I don't know what I was expecting out of this book, but I definitely did not expect to cry. The next question is, what is a book that made you happy? And I think I'll just go with the Spiderwick Chronicles, like any one of them. It was very like nostalgic for me to read them because Spiderwick was one of my favorite movies when I was a kid. The next question is, what is your favorite book to movie adaptation? I'll go with Coraline. I've read the novel Coraline. I read it last year, but then I found out there was a graphic novel, so I decided to read that one this year. It's my favorite. Love that creep factor that I was talking about. Like the illustrations in this one just like make it even more creepy because the other mother looks freaky, dude. So yeah, that's definitely my favorite one. And Coraline is just one of my favorite movies of all time anyways. The next question is, what is your favorite review that you've written this year? And I don't really write reviews. Like, I'm not good at it, so I just don't do it. The next question is, what is the most beautiful book that you've bought or received this year? So I've hauled like 45 books. So I have quite a few that I think are just beautiful. Another thing that makes this book disappointing, the cover is like one of my favorites. I love how eerie it is, and it's blue. Blue is one of my favorite colors. I also have a duology that I got this year. It's the Monsters of Verity duology by V.E. Schwab. These are not the original covers for the books, but I really loved these editions, so I got them. I wouldn't say this one's beautiful, but it's definitely like one of my favorite covers because it's just so good. My Best Friend's Exorcism. Sorry, I have to like angle it because my light is like right in front of my face and it's glaring. But this is just nostalgic for me because like I was alive and growing up when VHS players and tapes were still relevant. Also, The Stars Will Guide Us Back. Love that cover. The colors, the artwork is just it. Rue did the art themselves, which love that for them. And the last question is, what books do you still need to read by the end of this year? So I made like a TBR for like the entirety of the year, like books that I wanted to read throughout the year, and I've only read one off of it, and I read it like last week. It was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, but there's like 5 or 6 other books that I still need to read. One of them is Witchy. This is a YA graphic novel and it's fantasy. Me and Rue talked about reading this together like last September, but then I fell into a reading slump again. And they were very understanding. They were like, well, we'll just read it when you're ready. And I'm still not ready. I still very much want to buddy read this with them. I just don't know when. Because, like, as of right now, I'm slowly getting back into the mood of reading. But I don't feel like reading this one, if you know what I mean. So, another book that I still need to read is Daylight Chasers by Rue Sparks. I've had this for like a year and there's only 50 pages, so I don't get why I haven't read it yet. I'm sorry, Rue. I'm sorry. But yeah, I still need to read this. I definitely do want to read this before I read The Stars Will Guide Us Back because like I've had this one for longer. Another book that I need to read is I Hope You Get This Message by Farah Rishi. This one is a YA fantasy. I got this from Owl Crate like 2 years ago at this point. But I was enjoying the story, but reading slump. I didn't want to read it. I wasn't feeling it. But I didn't want to not finish this one just because like I was enjoying it. And so like I wanted to read this one this year, but so far that's not looking good for me. And I still need to read The Beauty in Breaking by Michelle Harper. This one is nonfiction. Michelle tells her story of how hard it was for her to become a black female doctor in America, where most doctors are old white dudes. So, but yes, I still need to read this one. And then the last book that I still need to read, which like I don't need to read it, like I won't be pressed if I don't read it because I've already read it before, but it's The Honeymooners by Christina Lauren. I do like to reread my favorite romances. Like I like to reread one book per year. Like last year I reread like 5 books, but like I like to reread my favorite books, and this was the one that I wanted to reread. So, but yeah, again, I won't be pressed if I don't read this, but it's still like on my 2021 TBR. Hopefully the second half of this year is better for me in terms of reading, just because like I've missed reading so hard. Like even though I was still reading, it wasn't the same. I'm sure some of you can understand what I'm talking about. Anyways, that is all I have for today's video. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up. Anyways, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!